You heard it this morning, just after the kettle started to boil. The neighbor's voice was low, almost apologetic when she said it. Harold Jenkins passed away this morning. You froze. Your hand hovered over the stovetop. Steam hissed quietly in the background. You weren't close to Harold. But you knew him. He lived 4 doors down. Same walk every morning, same gray windbreaker, same gentle nod if your eyes met. He didn't say much. He didn't need to. He was one of those people who moved through the world with the kind of stillness you only notice once they're gone. He didn't make the news. There won't be a headline, no viral post, just a small line in the paper next week. An obituary written by a niece in another state. Harold Jenkins, 71. Retired bus driver. Loved black coffee, baseball, and his front porch. That's it. And yet, something about his death stayed with you. Not because of how he died, but because of how he lived. Quiet. Predictable. But present. You went outside, still holding your mug, and stared at his porch. The chair was empty, but the cushion still held the soft indent of where he used to sit. Like the world hadn't quite caught up to the news yet. And that's when it hit you. What did his life teach me, just by being lived? You sat down, notebook in hand, and started writing. Not about regret, about reminders. The first one came fast. 1. Routine is not a trap. It's a form of devotion. Harold walked every morning, rain or sun, no headphones, no distractions. Just him. 1 foot in front of the other, 7 days a week. He didn't call it meditation. He didn't label it self-care. But that's exactly what it was. A quiet promise to his body, to the trees on his street, to the rhythm of being here. You realized he didn't wait to feel motivated. He moved because moving was the point. The second truth surprised you. 2. You don't have to be loud to be known. Harold rarely spoke more than a sentence at a time. But everyone respected him. The grocery clerk knew his name. The neighbor's kid waved to him every morning. The dog down the street always wagged when he walked by. He never shared his life story. But he showed up. And that was enough. You started to wonder, how many people do I walk past each day? Forgetting that even the quiet ones are building legacies too. That night, you sat at your kitchen table, light spilling across the page, and wrote down a question. If I were gone tomorrow, what quiet rhythms would the world miss about me? And you couldn't answer it. Not yet. But you felt something stir. Harold Jenkins may not have made history, but his ordinary life left an extraordinary echo, and you're just beginning to hear it. Later in the video, you'll uncover a lesson that changed how you think about loneliness. Something Harold didn't escape, but may have learned to live with better than most. You found out later that Harold lived alone for nearly 20 years. No wife, no children nearby, no loud visitors, just him. At first, that hit you hard. Because deep down, you've always feared the same thing. Ending up in a house that's too quiet. A room that echoes your own breathing. You always thought that kind of life meant something had gone wrong. That loneliness meant failure. But then, you started looking closer. His lawn was always neat. The porch swept, mail sorted, groceries brought home in tidy bags. Every Friday, he brought the same old vase out to the front step, placed a single fresh flower inside, and just sat beside it. Not waiting, not scrolling, not performing, just being. You used to pass him and wonder what he thought about. Now you realize he didn't need to escape his life, because he'd made peace with it. 3. Loneliness and solitude are not the same thing. That was the third truth. And it landed deeper than you expected. You remember all the times you turned on the TV just to drown out the silence. the moments you reached for your phone because stillness made you uncomfortable. But Harold? Harold honored it. His life didn't need noise to have meaning. You heard from a neighbor that once a week, like clockwork, Harold wrote letters. No one knows who he sent them to. He never talked about it, but he mailed them. Every Saturday, stamped, neat handwriting, no return address. And it made you wonder, was he lonely? Or was he just deeply connected to something the rest of us have forgotten? You sat with that for a long time, and you asked yourself a question you'd been avoiding for years. If I was alone tomorrow, would I still know how to live? The answer didn't come right away, but the question stayed. That evening, you walked past his house, stopped at the porch. The flower vase was still there, empty now, but somehow not sad. It looked like it was still waiting for the next small act of attention, of ritual, of care. Harold didn't die with fanfare, but he also didn't die forgotten. Because a man who knows how to live with himself, fully, quietly, honestly, never really disappears. He leaves behind a trail of presence, of stillness, of peace. Later in the video, you'll reflect on a truth about time, how Harold's death forced you to ask what you've really done with the hours you so casually throw away. You kept thinking about his routine. Harold Jenkins didn't rush, didn't post, didn't strive for anything that would impress a stranger. And yet, somehow, he seemed more present in one morning walk than most people are in a week of digital noise. You started remembering things, moments that seemed small at the time, but now feel like lessons in how to live. Like how Harold always stopped to pick up litter, even if it wasn't in front of his house. Like how he nodded to the mailman, every single time. Like how he stood still while the birds landed on the feeder he'd built from scrap wood. You realize now, he never tried to be great, but he never wasted a day either. 4. A meaningful life is made of repeated invisible choices. No one celebrated Harold's walk. No one clapped when he boiled his eggs. No one gave him an award for returning a dropped glove at the bus stop. But these things? They added up, because he gave his attention to the parts of life we're taught to overlook. And that's where his purpose lived. Not in achievement, in intention. You think back to your own days, the ones you tossed aside, the afternoons you killed, the I'll do it tomorrow hours that never came back around, and suddenly, you feel something sharper than regret. You feel urgency, not to panic, but to wake up. You used to believe that your purpose had to be discovered, some big thing you were meant to find. But Harold? He built his purpose out of small actions, out of consistent kindness, out of attention to what was in front of him, instead of what he was missing. You wrote it down in your notebook. Maybe it's not about finding meaning. Maybe it's about practicing it. Every single day, even when no one sees. And when you looked back at that sentence, you didn't just see words. You saw a man. Gray windbreaker, steady steps, quiet mind, teaching you something without ever speaking a word. Harold Jenkins didn't live for applause. He lived for alignment. And in doing so, he left behind a trail of invisible goodness that only now you've learned how to trace. Later in the video, you'll sit with one final question: how Harold's death revealed what so many forget until the very end. Your legacy isn't made when you leave. It's made in how you stay. You passed his house again this evening. Same porch, same railing with the chipped white paint, same wooden chair. Still facing the street like it was waiting for one more sunrise. But this time, something was different. You stopped. Not to grieve, not out of habit. You stopped because something inside you finally understood. Harold Jenkins didn't live to be remembered. He lived so that he could remember himself every day. And now, somehow, you were remembering too. You used to think legacy meant leaving something big. A name, a business, a building. But now, you think legacy is something quieter. more personal, more daily. It's how you carry your body through the room, how you make tea without rushing, how you hold the door even when no one says thank you. It's the energy people feel when they pass your presence, the way they feel safe around your stillness. 5. Your legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you give while you're still here. And Harold gave presence. Steady, unshaken presence. Even when he was alone. Even when the world moved faster than he did. Especially then. You wrote your final line in the notebook. Simple, but true. The world will forget my name, but it won't forget the way I lived, if I live with care. And for the first time in a long time, you didn't feel afraid of what's ahead. You felt responsible for what's left. Not to be perfect, not to be praised, but to be here, on time, with both feet, and a little more love than you had yesterday. You took a walk, not far, just enough. Past his house, past the mailbox, past the neighbors who nodded but didn't stop you. And in that slow walk, you made a promise. Not to Harold, to yourself. From now on, I will live like someone is learning from me, even if they never say it out loud. Because someone always is. A child, a neighbor, a stranger, or the future version of yourself who's been waiting for you to finally show up. A 71-year-old man passed away this morning. He didn't leave behind a fortune. He didn't change the world. But he changed something in you. And maybe that's the real point of it all. If this story slowed you down, if it made you reflect on the way you move through your own life, please consider subscribing. Because here, we don't just talk about life, we remember how to live it. Quietly, honestly, and on purpose. You woke up today before the sun. No alarm, no urgency, just the quiet press of breath pulling you into consciousness. And instead of reaching for your phone, you listened. Not to the world, to yourself. To the part of you that used to feel muffled beneath busyness, beneath guilt, beneath the idea that you didn't have time to slow down. You walked to the window. Same house, same view. But this morning, it didn't feel like background. It felt like intention, like the world had always been trying to get your attention. You were just too loud inside to hear it. You made coffee, sat at the table, and for once, you didn't plan the whole day before the mug cooled in your hands. You just sat. And that, you realized, was the lesson you almost missed. 6. Stillness is not the absence of life. It's the presence of attention. You don't need to do more, own more, control more. You need to notice more, the way Harold did. You looked down at the notebook you started the day he passed. It was fuller now, not perfect, but honest. Filled with lessons you didn't expect to come from a man you barely spoke to, and maybe that's what made them matter even more. You closed the notebook gently, stood, walked outside. The air was cold. Your steps were slow. But they were yours. And in that stillness, you remembered something you'd once forgotten. Every day I wake up is another chance to live the kind of life that doesn't have to be remembered, because it was fully lived. Harold Jenkins is gone, but his presence lingers in the way you hold a cup, the way you pause at a window, the way you look strangers in the eye and actually see them. He didn't just pass away, he passed something on, and what you do with it is entirely up to you. If this final piece settled something in your heart, if it reminded you to slow down, to be gentle, to be here, please consider subscribing, because this channel isn't just for remembering others, it's for remembering yourself.